Hello, everyone, from the Matt Moore's Digital Studio here in Fresno, California. This is the Beem and Dean Show, episode 77, with the sports director of KC24 and CBS 47, Scott Bemis. I am Dean Shiro. Scotty, how was the weekend? I have some proof and some pictures here. I saw you were a very busy man. Let's check it out. Here we go.
Very busy man on the couch until that Tulane game was a blowout, and we figured, hey, let's go get
a tree.
And in a typical Bemis fashion, we were in and out in probably less than 6 minutes.
Bemis / Griswold fashion. I love it.
Yeah.
That looks fantastic. Look at that. Look at that. Family, everyone's happy. You know, it's fantastic. Coop holding the tree, holding it down. So got Ellen doing her dance, and then we've got Susan in the background saying, thank God.
Dean, how long have you been married now?
Almost 30 years.
Okay, so what am I going on? I'm going on be 19 years in April.
There you go.
So we were happy at this moment, right?
Yes.
You imagine, right, though, it's not pure happiness as you go home to set up the tree.
Oh, boy,
right?
yeah, I remember. I remember.
Yeah. There's always at least one moment of tension.
All right, go ahead, fire away.
No, I'm not saying that it was anything crazy, but
it's just spill it to our audience.
Just to give those single people out there, you go and get the tree, it's fun, and then you get home and you have to set up the tree.
You do.
And when
get
you
all
have to
the
set up
ornaments
the tree,
out from the garage or wherever they are.
And that usually becomes a team effort.
Sure.
You know,
you think.
Well, usually it's just my wife doing it. I actually tried to help this year.
I love it.
And by trying to help,
I love it.
If Susan watches this, I apologize in advance. But
we apologize.
It wasn't fitting initially, right? In the thing. So I went out. First off, I'm proud of myself. I grabbed my toolbox for probably the first time in about a decade.
Nice.
Right? Because it's just not me. I'm not Mr. Handyman by any means.
It's all good.
Grabbed the little saw out of there, the old, hand saw from back in the day. No,
sure.
I don't have one that plugs in. I've got an old hand saw, Dean. That's how old my toolbox is.
I like it.
And I start cutting branches off. I get it inside. I think I've done a great job.
Yep.
I took it on my, put it down into the thing. We look at it, and my wife goes, there's a lot of empty area there at the bottom. You didn't measure it or anything?
That's for the presents.
So that's
for the big presents. That's what you tell her.
That was the story of my tree. And so there was 15 minutes of married tension, as you know.
Fantastic.
And then we moved on, and we've been happy ever since.
All right. Well, here's my Saturday night. So my two boys on the left with my two adopted sons. This is Rodrigo Perez Mejia and his brother Alonzo Perez Mejia, are my two sons' best friends. We went to go see Santa Claus at the Fashion Fair Mall. That's in front of the big tree in the front. So interesting. It was kind of cool because the Perez Mejias are from Spain. They normally don't go see Santa Claus, so it was a cool experience for them. And then we did dinner at the Cheesecake Factory. Had a great time, so I wanted to show that off a little bit. So anyway, back to our two-shot here. All right, so with that being said, we had a good college and pro football weekend. Your early thoughts on what you saw? I know you got to see some, so.
Well, I always lean towards the college game. As you know, I'd say college football is probably my favorite sport. And maybe golf's close second in there. But, I thought there were a couple great games to begin the weekend. That Alabama-Oklahoma game, had a lot of tension to it on Friday night.
Yeah.
Great atmosphere at the home sites. We can get into that maybe a little bit later.
Yeah.
I have some thoughts on that.
Yeah.
And then obviously that Miami-Texas A&M game, although there wasn't a ton of scoring.
No.
It was one of those games that had a ton of tension, and you didn't mind that there wasn't a ton of scoring because it felt almost like a soccer game.
Right, yeah, it was.
Every point, like a big World Cup soccer game, or every goal was going to be absolutely huge in that game. And
how the elements played into it too, with the wind. The kicker kicked the ball straight and then it curved to the left and missed. I mean, that first one, I don't know if you saw it. It was going right in, and
I did.
So it was just kind of really, really crazy. So.
And you talk about a great environment. For a game. I mentioned it that I was a little sad that A&M game was slotted into the 9 a.m. window.
Yeah.
In hindsight, it was probably good that it was in the 9 a.m. window because it didn't have to go up against that great NFL game between the Bears and Packers.
Yeah, which is another thing we'll talk about.
Everybody watching that game, and that lived up to the hype. I love the home sites for these playoff games.
Agreed.
Dean.
I love it.
And look, I like tradition too. We'll get into a little bit of that
We're
later about
college
football tradition.
Yeah.
But so I don't mind New Year's Day, them playing in the 4 bowl games if they want to do that, if they want to continue with that. I'm fine with that. New Year's Day has always been that great day, right, for college football.
Yeah.
But you know what? Let's make the semifinals back at home sites. That also rewards teams.
So quarters for the bowls, semis go back to home games.
Back to home sites, and then you can play the national championship on a neutral site. First off, it's tough, I think, to ask a fan base to travel to a bowl-type setting for 2 weeks in a row.
Right.
And it kind of loses some of its luster in that second week. And so you also reward, if you're the higher seed, you get to host. And so hey, that 1 seed could be meaningful because we could be hosting a national semi on January 8th or whatever it is.
Could you imagine like the Horseshoe in Columbus on like January 8th?
Yeah.
Could be a little could be a little blustery.
You get the elements, it'd be great,
Or you could be in Miami.
Going to Ohio State.
Or you could be in Miami, 75 degrees and sunny. So, it's just crazy. So
they get the bowl experience the week before.
I know.
And then you play at the home site.
Right. But I'm saying if Miami, Florida would host a game, then that would be kind of crazy too, 75 degrees and sunny. But all right, let's get into our coming in hot. All right, Scotty, we're going right back to college football again. I mean, obviously the playoffs were great. I mean, there was a lot of really cool stuff going on. But, with some of these college traditions, with the new landscape of college football, some of these college traditions, I'm very disappointed they're going away. For example, we learned today that Notre Dame and Southern Cal will not play in the near future, at least for the next 2 years. And Notre Dame signed a contract with BYU to do a home and home instead. There's apparently some issues about when the game's going to be played. SC wants it earlier in the year. Notre Dame wants to keep it where it's at. Very disappointing. We both love the Trojans, so always love that game. And then other college traditions going away too, Scotty. Like teams that don't sing the fight song anymore. Like at Colorado, they don't learn the fight song. Some of the traditions, running behind Ralphie, the Prime doesn't do that. They run after Ralphie, but they don't run right behind. Those are two of the ones for Colorado. There's a lot of other ones, though.
Is there a reason that Prime has made those changes?
I don't know. It's just the way it kind of has gone down, but it's kind of irked a lot of people. But Colorado's not the only school where some of these traditions are going away. There's other ones, too. So, but the whole thing about Notre Dame and SC, I'll let you kind of get into this, and we'll go from there.
Well, what a shame. What a shame, right? I'm a, Trojan.
You're an alum.
I'm a Trojan. I grew up in an SC family. That's where my parents met. And that's where I went to school. And obviously grew up going to USC football games. We had season tickets as a family, from as long as I can remember. Those were my first memories basically as a kid are going to SC football games. And Notre Dame is just part of the framework of that, right? You have a game against Notre Dame, whether it's in South Bend, which usually would happen in mid-October, or it's the final game of the season, at the Coliseum against Notre Dame. Now, I'm fine if they want to move it on the schedule. It doesn't have to be the final game on the season. I don't mind if they open with the game.
Sure.
But let's make this work. Come on.
Absolutely.
This is Notre Dame USC. I mean, if you go back and look at the tradition of this game, some of the most memorable games in college football history have been played between these two.
Agreed.
There's a famous Anthony Davis game in the 1970s where SC overcame, I think it was a 24-6 deficit at halftime or something like that. Davis scoring a bunch of touchdowns in the second half at the Coliseum. And then, of course, the Bush push play,
right.
One of the most memorable games in college football history. It's just this, to me, this is giving up too easily, right? We're just gonna say bye to this series for the time being.
I completely agree with you.
I know they may relaunch it in the future. I don't think it's going away permanently, but we got to be able to figure this out, right? I'm okay.
Yeah.
Let's come together and say let's play it the first game of the year. Let's play it the last game. Let's play it some other time. I mean, this can be figured out in some capacity. This game should be played in college football every year.
I agree.
I mean, USC's two biggest rivals. I mean, some would argue their biggest rival. I think UCLA, personally, for me, is a little bit bigger rival just because of the, cross city. You grow up around Bruins your entire life.
Sure.
But growing up, it used to be said, when I would go to USC games, the perfect weekend, right, for USC fans was if USC won and both UCLA and Notre Dame lost.
That's right.
That was the perfect weekend.
That's right.
It's something that is like the fabric of being a Trojan fan, is that you root against Notre Dame because they're one of your biggest rivals.
Yeah, and then you have conference realignment, which took away a lot of great traditions for a while there. When Texas A&M went to the SEC, you lost Texas versus Texas A&M for like almost a decade, I believe. They're back now, but just horrible things like that. I mean, that's the only thing with this landscape of college football and kind of the wild, wild west that I don't really like is you see a lot of this stuff, a lot of mercenaries just traveling from school to school. They don't really ever get immersed in the tradition because they're only there for 1 year, So I would like to see that kind of get legislated. We've talked about this before. It's just my 2 cents in some fashion, and get some of these great traditions at these wonderful universities, who have 100 plus years of history, almost all of them at this point. So,
well, I'm just shocked that both these schools wouldn't fight harder for this, to try to make this happen. That they would, just kind of let it go away, even if it's more on one side. I understand, right? It sounds like it's more from USC side where it's not fitting in to the Big Ten schedule as easily as it used to with maybe that old Pac-12 schedule. But someone's got to be the bigger man here and just say, Notre Dame, maybe just say, okay, we understand, like, how can we make this work for you guys? I mean, because this is just as big a deal to Notre Dame, in my opinion, as it is to USC. And Notre Dame, they need every big-time opponent on their schedule that they can get, considering what happened this year, them getting left out of the playoffs.
Part of this might be the Big Ten being upset, too, that Notre Dame hasn't joined the conference as well. They might not allow that wiggle room because they're like, well, wait a second. The second team you're trying to get in here is the team that we would like to have as part of our conference. So who knows there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, Notre Dame joining the Big Ten for years just seemed like such a natural fit.
Especially when you had USC and UCLA announce early, pre-Washington, Oregon, that they were going.
Don't you feel like that ship has kind of sailed, though? If Notre Dame ended up joining a conference, it would probably be the ACC at this point.
Oh, man, what a big mistake that would be, though. But again, it hurt. It did hurt Notre Dame this year for the playoffs, so we'll see what happens. So let's get to some of these games that we were kind of talking about earlier. We had 2 road playoff wins for the first time in the college football playoff. And then, my questions to you, was Tulane deserving? You and I kind of talked about it over the weekend. I think you think yes, I think no. And then James Madison. Not only did they kind of make that game fun in the second half for everyone, except for the betting public and yours truly. So I'll show my play later that got knocked off the board up 34-6. Give me your early take on last weekend in the college football world.
Well, obviously the talking point right now is going to be, all right, should we have group of 5 teams in the playoff? And obviously it's just the way that it worked out this year where there were 2 teams in the playoff. Now, you asked that question. Was Tulane deserving?
Were they deserving?
If you're using the definition deserving, I would argue yes. Are they one of the 12 best teams in the country? No. And I would have told you that going in. And we were clear about that. We were said, hey, there's probably going to be 2 blowouts here in these games. I actually thought Tulane might have a better chance of kind of hanging around a little bit, got off to a horrible start. And it just kind of snowballed from there. But I've also argued too, this isn't a great year for the group of 5. Even Power 5 conferences have up and down years.
That's true.
I've seen some tweets about,
you showed me one about like TCU getting blown out by Georgia.
If you think this is the first time there's ever been blowouts in the college football playoff, you are tremendously mistaken. Yeah. And it happens Power 4 to Power 4 all the time as well. No doubt that group of 5 teams are going to be a little overmatched, generally speaking, especially if you don't have a really special group of 5 team, which I don't think they had this season. Last year's Boise team, I think, was at a little different level than these teams this year. And I think that Boise team kind of hung around for a little bit against Penn State. I think if the ball had bounced a little bit differently, they might have taken that into the second half into a fourth quarter game and might have had a shot in that game with Ashton Genty and that team and everything else. These 2 group of 5 teams, just not super special group of 5 teams. Now, should we have 2 group of 5 teams in the playoff? Probably not. And this is just a weird way that it worked out. But if you have the system set up the way it's set up this year, right? The ACC champ had 5 losses, and it's the 5 highest ranked conference champions. This is probably the one time, if you do this thing 10 times, that will happen.
You're right.
But that's the way the ball bounced, and it's okay. Is it the end of the world that Tulane went in and got trounced by Ole Miss?
No.
I mean,
no.
I don't know.
No, it wasn't the end of the world, but I think there's 2 different questions you're asking. Did the 2 teams most deserving according to the rules get in? Yes. Did the 12 best teams in the country get in? No.
No, they did, but they never do.
Right. But 11 of them normally do. The 12th one is always going to be that G5 team.
No, not necessarily. By the way, if you take the 5 highest ranked conference champions, even you're going to have you're not always going to have the 12 best teams, even if there's one group of 5 team, because you could have an ACC champion who's ranked 15th, or a Big 12 champion who's ranked 14th in that scenario. And so that's not always going to be the case. So it just comes down to how do you want to do it. I personally think I lean more towards deserving as opposed to just best teams being in the playoff, because if you're just taking the best teams in a playoff, why do you even play the games during the regular season? Because Vegas could tell you before the season, who the 12 best teams are.
Right.
Or by the end of the year, if one team has 3 losses and another one has 1 loss, but the team with 3 losses is would be favored over that team with one loss. That happens a lot on a neutral field. Do we take the team with 3 losses? It's just, to me.
Well, we did, and they're moving on to the quarterfinals, by the way. Alabama had 3 losses.
Alabama. Alabama. I think there's a balance to be struck here between deserving and what you call best, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's why we have a committee that they can kind of use the eye test sometimes. And I think any other year, Notre Dame would have been in the playoff. It just worked out a certain way that so many things worked against them. The fact that they had a head-to-head loss against one of the teams that they were being directly compared to. And then, the other team they're being directly compared to plays in arguably the toughest conference in the country, had some nice wins this season, and then lost in a conference title game, and Notre Dame doesn't play in a conference title game. So all these factors just kind of worked against Notre Dame. I don't think it was a bad year, like I've said before, for the playoff, and I'm not overreacting to these 2 games.
No, I don't think it's a bad year. I just, like I said, I think that game, Notre Dame at Ole Miss would have been pretty interesting.
No, it would, but here's the thing. If Duke wins the ACC, really,
they did.
Really,
they won
Notre
the
Dame
ACC.
Doesn't really have, much. If
I'm not saying they have a leg to stand on. I'm
saying is, if Duke was ranked over ahead of one of those Group of 5 teams, they would have been in the playoff. Mm-hmm. Do you think Duke goes into Ole Miss and wins?
No,
I don't.
No,
and I
think Duke lost to Tulane, and that was the one thing Tulane could stick their flag on in the middle of the field is, hey, we beat Duke.
Right. I like having some kind of automatic entry for conference champions because I think college football is kind of built on conference championships. But I think you have a nice little balance, and I think you have it right now. No doubt. Hey, I picked up Notre Dame early in the season. Thought there was value on a huge number of them to win the title.
Yeah.
They actually could have won the national title, Dean. But just because you could actually win the national title doesn't mean you deserve to play for the national title.
Good point.
Texas could probably win a national title.
Yeah.
To be perfectly
honest.
Texas
with 3 losses.
Yeah, they're probably, with the way they were playing at the end of the year, they're probably good enough to win a national title.
Right.
But do they deserve to play for a national title?
Right.
Those are 2 different things.
Yeah.
The best team doesn't win the NCAA basketball tournament every year.
Right.
Far from it, in fact.
So I think what we're agreeing on, Scotty, is let's get to 16 and let's get this thing done, right? Because we already know how Scott feels about that. So I'm just
I'm sorry if I'm monopolizing the conversation.
You're good. Just really quick, let's just get to some NFL really quick because this show's flying by. We're gonna have our year-end show that'll air starting on Thursday. We'll cover a little bit of the 4 quarterfinal games in college football, but let's get to the NFL really quick. So Rams blow the huge lead on Thursday night, really hurt them. Lions on the brink of extinction. The Jags looked great yesterday in Denver. The Ravens are in a little bit of trouble. Lamar comes out of the game. Why didn't Derrick Henry play in the 4th quarter? And then let's see what else. Pats look to clinch the AFC East this week against the Jets. The Bills get a nice win in Cleveland, and then the Bears miracle win, which you mentioned on Saturday. Where do you want to begin?
Well, I think the biggest storyline coming out of this week for me, there's 3 things. The Rams blowing that game on Thursday night, which is just huge. I know they could still work their way back if the Seahawks fall or something like that.
It's going to be a challenge because you got the Niners too.
Right. But that, dropping that sequence of events there, of them blowing that lead and then losing that game, has such a huge effect, going from possible 1 seed to 5 seed, right?
Or 6 still. The Bears can still edge them out.
Oh, okay.
Because the Rams still have to go to Atlanta.
So that's storyline number 1 there. Yep. Just how big of how big that loss was, that 4th quarter collapse.
Sure.
The Bears. And how big that miracle comeback was.
Oh, my God.
Because there's another example, right? Just shows you what the fine line is in the NFL between maybe being the 1 seed and maybe being the 5 or 6 seed.
Yeah, it happened to the Bears 2 weeks ago where they were 1 and they dropped to 5 when they lost that game. I forgot who they lost to, but anyway, they lost a game. So there's just a lot of sliding around going around right now.
And if you're the Packers, you're just kicking yourself right now. You're just absolutely kicking yourself on letting that game get away.
Absolutely.
And, I think the Bears probably had a less than 0.5% win probability at one point.
Yeah, I wish we would have screenshotted it. It was probably less than 1%. So
sure. And then what do you think? Because the announcer said they thought he was going to go for 2 after the touchdown. I wasn't 100% sure because they're at home now as opposed to being on the road. I think on the road they would have gone for 2 in Green Bay if they had tied the game or gone within 1.
Right.
But at home, did you like the decision to kick?
Yeah, I mean, I did. I did like the decision. I just didn't. Chicago had done nothing to that point to really threaten. Caleb was okay. The running game was just okay. But how they turned that thing on at the end, with just boom, boom, boom. It was like over. Going back to the Seahawks, I mean, the Rams just completely blew that game, giving up that huge punt return. I don't know if you heard, but the Rams specialty coach was fired on Friday.
Okay.
Yes. So, and not just for that, we've missed field goals this year. If you look at our 4 losses, they've all been devastating. Missing field goals. We blew a game in Philly by missing 2 field goals. We blew a game against the Niners by missing a field goal. That punt return was just completely unacceptable. And then Matthew Stafford, you have good Matthew Stafford, bad Matthew Stafford. He could not get a first down in the 4th quarter. Gave them the ball back, and they scored 16 points within 3 minutes. That just can't happen to supposedly a great defense. So,
well, the problem is the Rams have made things very difficult for themselves now.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it was all set up there, but now it's going to be very difficult.
Right.
And the NFC, is not that easy.
Are they good enough to go on the road and beat Tampa? Yes, we've done it before. We've beaten Tampa before to win a Super Bowl. So it's not like it's the end of the world, but we cannot keep blowing these games. I mean, we've lost 4 games. We should really, in my opinion, be 15-0. Because the 4 games we've lost, we've completely blown all of them, including Carolina and Philadelphia.
Well, I think when you look back on it too, Dean, sure, we're talking about the tight losses, things happen in the NFL.
Right.
Sometimes those things even themselves out too. There might be another game during the course of the season we're forgetting about where maybe they did win it at the end and got a little fortunate or something.
There have been a couple of those. I'm not saying that, but yeah.
But the game they're going to really look back on. I mean, obviously the Seahawks game, but that Panther game.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like letting that game get away in Carolina, when they look back on the season.
Yeah.
That's going to
The Philly one was really bad too, Scotty. That was a really bad one. That was late in the 4th quarter again, 2-touchdown lead. Just need to get a first down. It was so long ago, you don't even remember it. It was like week 3 or 4. It was that long ago. But
so the other storyline I was going to bring up too,
go ahead.
that I thought was big this week, and I'll get your thoughts.
Yeah.
How the Patriots reacted
to
that loss to the Bills.
Yeah.
Because you thought, okay, is this team going to kind of get rattled a little bit? Maybe it was a little bit of fool's gold, right? They're playing a super easy schedule, and they let that one get away with Buffalo. Is this team going to is that going to carry over? For them to go to Baltimore, win that game, and kind of set themselves up to still win the division, still have a chance, at the 1 seed, I think that was huge, and I think that kind of announced that they are a legit Super Bowl contender.
No question. And Drake May just playing at a very elite level. He's taking a bunch of guys who I wouldn't call 5-star receivers and running backs and just making them shine just because of the threat of his legs. He could run it too, Drake. That's the thing. You have to watch everything in that backfield. He's just not a statue back there, So their defense is very good. My question, I got to go back to you. So Derrick Henry's rolling last night. For anyone who had Derrick Henry in fantasy, he had 112 yards through 2 quarters pretty much. And then in the second half, he scored 1 touchdown, but they barely played him. He was not injured. Lamar got hurt. I get it. Huntley comes in. Why do you not play Derrick Henry with the lead if you're John Harbaugh? And
I don't know.
I don't have an answer.
I had the game on. I was
You're getting
following.
You're getting ready for Bulldog Insider.
Yeah, I wasn't watching every single play super intently. I've heard this narrative today, people talking about it. Yeah. I mean, I agree. When you bring it up and say it like that, it doesn't seem to make a ton of sense.
The Patriots couldn't stop him, Scott.
I think sometimes coaches kind of overthink things, right? So
they called it the running back rotation.
Well, and I'm not sure what kind of play calls they were doing. Were they running the other back?
Yeah, they were running Justice Hill, and they were running the other 2 guys in rotation. And this guy, I mean, why did the NFL? Why didn't that go with the hot hand anymore? I don't understand it.
We've seen the NFL get away from just
they don't go with hot hand,
riding a running back,
right?
When he's hot. And I think there's something to being in a rhythm as a running back. We talk about it all the time with quarterbacks,
absolutely.
But I think it applies to running backs,
absolutely.
And I get it. Derek's getting up there. Henry's getting up there in years. And running backs, they take probably more physical contact than any other position on the field.
Right.
I mean, as far as hits,
sure.
from time and time again.
Right.
And it's just it's a game of attrition. How long can you hang in there without getting hurt? And so, it's like a numbers game. The more carries you get, eventually you're going to get banged up in some capacity.
That's true.
Right. And so,
but you're fighting for your playoff life, those two, Scott.
I get it. I mean, and so to me, you find another time to maybe ease things up on Derrick Henry. When a running back's in a rhythm like that,
right.
They're seeing things great. They're following their instincts. I mean, there's something to that.
The linemen are gelling. Everything's rolling. If he had 10 carries for 37 yards, totally get it. I mean, he's got 112 yards and he's rolling. I think he had 2 touchdowns at the time too. So anyway, now the Ravens are kind of in their pocket. The Lions are in their pocket. So we got the game tonight. You've got Indianapolis hosting the 49ers. Huge game in the NFC West. Any comment really quick before we get to money plays?
Yeah, I mean, there'll be some eyeballs on this game. I know I'm interested because we're all interested to see how Phillip Rivers continues to look. I just have a feeling it's not going to look great.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
I've got to play on this game, so we'll show it now in money plays. All right, we're in Money Plays. This is the second to last show of the year, and we have a new leader in the clubhouse. My man, the teaser man himself. He has taken the lead. He's at 940.98, just under that Mendoza line of 1,000. We start with $1,000 fictitious money each month. Whoever has the most gets the month, who wins the month. And so Scott had 2 nice plays there. Arkansas State didn't quite come through, but real quick recap on those 2.
Well, I'm 4-2, right, on my last 2 weeks of picks.
Yes.
But unfortunately, I'm still down a little money because my biggest play unfortunately lost. But yeah, I've been doing pretty well on these teasers, so I'm going to go back to the well.
So let's fire again. Here you go.
Okay, I'm going to go with a 5-point 2-team teaser in hoops. Now, all right, so you're moving the line, 5 points, and now you need both these games to win for you to win your bet.
Okay.
And I get it down to minus 130 there.
Got it.
So I moved the Nuggets. They're at home tonight against the Jazz. They're coming off a home loss to Houston, but it is the Nuggets. They're one of the best teams in the Western Conference. They're a little banged up right now, but I think they're going to bounce back from a home loss. I think, whenever a team kind of gets embarrassed, they lost by like 14.
I like that play.
Yeah.
And then the Jazz, I mean, honestly, they're not great.
Yeah, I mean, well, the Jazz...
They can score points, though.
They can score points, but they're playing no defense.
Yeah.
So I figured the Jazz are going to hang around for a while in this game, but then the Nuggets are just going to decide to turn it on late. And I think having under 10...
Yeah.
And
they can't lose 2 at home in a row. They just can't.
That's what I'm thinking on that. Then I'm going to take Illinois against Missouri here, and I'm going to move that from 8.5 to 3.5
okay.
there. I've been impressed with Illinois recently, the way they've looked.
Me too.
That game's in St. Louis, so it's a rivalry game, so it'll be kind of split down the middle there. Was not that impressed with Missouri when I watched them against Kansas, so I think moving that down to 3.5 against a very good Illinois team there, I like that there. And then I'm going to give you a little bowl play here.
Little college football.
This for tomorrow, I believe.
Yes, it is.
And this is going to be a 6-point 2-team NCAA teaser here.
I like it.
Okay, so I'm going to move Louisville down to minus 1, I think it is, against Toledo there. And so my thinking here is Miller Moss, I believe, is going to play in this game.
I believe he is.
For Louisville, right? Yep. 3 defensive starters have opted out for Toledo, in this game. And Toledo could have a redshirt freshman playing at quarterback as well. And so just having to have Louisville, an ACC team win that game there, I like it in the Boca Raton Bowl.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna put that together with Southern Miss here. I'm going to bump them up from 1.5 to 7.5.
Got it.
So they got an interim coach there because their head coach is moving on again after 1 year at the helm.
Yep.
But the difference with this interim coach, Dean, he's been named the head coach.
Okay.
And I think when the interim coach, especially when he's an offensive guy and he's named the head coach, that keeps a little more continuity there. Players aren't thinking about who's going to be the new head coach, this and that, and they want to play for the new guy. And he was actually quoted in a story I read that 99% of these guys that he's talked to, are ready to play.
I got to run because we're less than a minute really quick.
They've had no opt-outs or anything, Dean.
So there's mine, 814.91, just showing that. Main points for tonight. Give me the Niners minus 2.5 at Indy. And let's see what else I got. I've got the New Orleans Bowl. Give me Western Kentucky money line going against Scott there. UNLV minus 6.5, and then Hawaii at home minus 2.5 against Cal, who does not have a coach as of right now. So I just want to show those off really quick. I wanted to just show really quick my bad beat. If you look at number 7, I got Ole Miss and then James Madison. They were down 30. They were down 34-6, came back and lost the bet. So any quick thoughts really quick before we got to go?
That's funny because James Madison, I saw their Twitter account, actually promoted the fact that, hey, we covered as a reason why, hey, stop getting on us, stop being critical of us, we belonged.
We'll be back on Thursday. This has been the Beem and Dean Show.